Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live with the Pricing Lady, the podcast. We are here to kick off episode 99. So last month and this month, we have been celebrating the upcoming 100th episode. I'll tell you more about that later. But today I've invited 3 guests to come on the show with me. 2 of the ladies have been guests previously, and one is a fan and follower of the show and maybe a potential guest for the future. And I'll start off, you know me, I like to start these episodes with a rapid fire session. But actually, before I get into that, let me share one thing. If you've not watched the show before, you might like to know what it's about. So Live with the Pricing Lady is all about helping you be more sustainably profitable in your business because you understand the value of your offer and you charge for that value. Pricing can either hurt or help your business. Let's make sure it's helping you reach your dreams. With that, welcome everyone. And first of all, I'm going to kick this off with the very easy question, which is, where are you joining us from today? So Simone, would you like to start?
I'm joining today from Zurich, Switzerland.
Excellent. Amanda?
I am in Weehawken, New Jersey, right across the river from Manhattan.
Super. And Carrie?
I am in the Charlotte metro area in North Carolina.
Excellent. So I'll also have them introduce themselves a little bit later, but first we'll continue with some rapid fire questions. So Carrie, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an attorney that traveled the world. I don't know what they did, but that's what I wanted to do.
I love it. And today, Carrie is a specialist in adult learning and a consultant in this area. We'll find out more about that as we go on. Amanda, what is it you wanted to be when you grew up?
That's a really great question. I don't know if I had a very specific occupation that I wanted to be, but I remember watching, this is going to age me. I remember watching Troop Beverly Hills and feeling like because they were so abundant, that was sort of like the joke of that, or the conceit of that film. I was like, whatever I need to do to have a life like that, that's what I want to do.
So it was less the occupation and more the results, right?
Right. So like the dad was a tire salesman, right? So like that, maybe that was part of my dream. I don't know.
I love it. So Amanda is an expert in visibility and PR. She's also the first coach I ever worked with when I started my own business. So we'll hear more from her. Simone, what were your aspirations when you were a young child? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Actually, that's easy. I always wanted to be an inventor when I was a child. Yeah. And I tried weird experiments thinking that I invent something of the future. But yeah, luckily it didn't get to the market. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's amazing because Simone is a co-founder or one of the co-founders of Loopy, which their aspirations are to create a circular, oh gosh, I'm going to mess this up, a fully sustainable stroller. Yeah, or a pram for children. And right now they've worked on a rental, let's say, business model to help parents, instead of having to purchase strollers, they can rent them. And she'll tell us more about that later. That's my sort of apologies for my introduction there, Simone. You'll be able to do it more justice later. All right, next one. What was the first job you ever had, Amanda?
Oh my gosh. The first job that I ever had, I mean, I was a counselor at camps, but the very first job that is, kind of in like the professional-ish realm was when I was in high school. I worked at a local travel agency, and it was back when, we printed paper tickets, and when they were booking Disney cruises for people. And I remember there was like this life-size Mickey in the office, and one of the kind of batty old travel agents, not to be what's the word? Disparaging. That's the word I was looking for. But she would go and she would talk to the Mickey, the life-size Mickey. So it was a really kind of interesting, like, generational thing that was happening there
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Oh, that's super cool. And Simone, what was your first job?
My first job.
Oh, it seems like we're having a little bit of technical difficulty there.
Actually, I did my in a retail.
Sorry, Simone, we're having troubles hearing you clearly. So, Carrie, what was your first job?
My very, very first job was actually as a custodian. It was as a custodian at the Social Security office. Yeah, it was.
Wow.
But as it relates to working in industry, my first job was as a, healthcare provider at the university level. So yeah, just, and a lot more in between all of that. But definitely I started out it was a pretty grungy job, cleaning an office, the Social Security office.
Yeah, I started out in fast food, so you got to start somewhere. Sorry, Simone, you cut out a little bit. Did you want to share that again?
As a 13-year-old, I started doing babysitting, so you could call that the first job that I did. From a professional perspective, it was delivering doing customer service in the healthcare sector.
Okay. Oh, wow. Excellent. So 2 of you started out your careers in the healthcare sector. Very interesting. Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Okay. I know that most entrepreneurs, they love taking courses. What's the most interesting, and it doesn't have to be business related, what's the most interesting course you've ever taken, or oddest for that matter? Carrie.
Shoot. I would say at actually something totally unrelated to the work that I do. I took a dance course, and it really stretched me in terms of my personality, and it was an amazing workout, but it was totally removed from any work related thing that I was doing, and hands down it was the best experience I ever had, and I always long to get back to that. But yeah.
Right. Oh, that's funny. And Simone, what kind of interesting course have you taken?
It's a couple of years ago, but I did a very interesting course that was actually held by the champion, like the memory, how you call it, the memory champion of Europe, also with the best memory and recording. And so in this course, it was really about techniques of remember as much as you can. Yeah.
Well, I can
so that's
use that.
Really, you definitely can use that in private and in job life.
Yeah, exactly.
To remember all kinds of things, starting from random numbers up to things that actually make sense.
Oh, that sounds like fun, doesn't it?
It can be fun. Yeah, it can be fun.
Yeah, cool.
And you have to make it fun in order to really remember it.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some things I'll never forget, not because they're interesting things to remember, but because of the mnemonic device that I use to remember them, right? Yeah, exactly. Amanda, what course have you taken?
I echo what Carrie said. Some of the most transformational moments I've had have been when I've been in like movement classes and dance and things like that. I used to take a class that religiously that paired aerobics with affirmations that you say out loud, which was incredible. But I will say the first thing that came to mind when you asked this question was in university, I took a class called The Law of the Press, and I was a journalism major, and we studied, I don't know if it was all of the Supreme Court cases that had to do with the media, but it was fascinating. And even to this day, I don't remember what all of the cases were called, the names and all that, but I remember, the reasoning and the rationale for some of these cases, and they're still relevant to this day, especially with a lot that's going on, like, some of the defamation cases that have been taking place here in the US with respect to families that were impacted by misinformation. And there's just tons of examples that are still relevant to these things that I learned about early on in my, media pursuit.
Right. Oh, that's cool. I love taking classes. And for me, there's two things that came to mind. So once when I was in Connecticut, I took a hot air ballooning class, which was absolutely fascinating. And we learned all about weather patterns and stuff like that. And then afterwards, we took a flight. I remember it because it was -14 that day. It was really cold. And every time we turned the burner on, we were all going like this. And the other one is one of my favorite courses in university was earthquake and plate tectonics, which I also thought was absolutely fascinating. So, and we had a little earthquake here in Basel over the weekend. I guess it was Saturday evening. And my friend texted me, "Oh, that was really scary." And I texted back, "Oh, it made me laugh." And I thought it was like kind of funny. I know they're not funny, but that was my first reaction to the little shake that we had here in Basel over the weekend.
My goodness.
Okay. So, because we'd like to get a little bit more information about what you do in your business and the value that you bring people. So, Simone, why don't you share with us a little bit more about Loopy and what you do there?
Sure. So since no stroller fits all of a family's needs as a child grows up and activities change, 1 in 4 families actually ends up buying more than 3 strollers. And I think that's a huge waste of money and resources. So at Loopy, we offer strollers in a subscription service. And that means parents can choose the stroller they like, they use it, and simply send it back if they would like to exchange the model or return the stroller. And in this way, this is really a flexible, convenient, and sustainable solution for the families of today and tomorrow.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I absolutely love what they do. So if you want to find out more about Loopy, it's currently just here in Switzerland, I believe. Correct, Simone?
That's correct.
Can go over to loopy.ch and find out more about that. Yeah. Excellent. Carrie, why don't you share with us a bit more about what you do as an adult learning consultant and the value you bring your clients?
Yeah, I work with talent development and as well as learning and development professionals who have existing content, and I guide them in improving adult learner engagement, because once people are engaged, they're more likely to retain information. And if they're retaining information, they are actually going to appropriately apply those skill sets. So I take my PhD in adult learning theory and interpret the theories and the research for businesses and identify ways in which they can apply the theories so that, in fact, their end users are fully engaged in learning. They're building learning experiences so that people understand and retain the information, and then they get to go off and do the thing that they're learning. And that's really powerful for businesses as well as the end user.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing. I mean, education is, to me, such it's so important at all levels. And I'm a lifelong learner and very curious about everything. I'm one of those people, when I go to the dentist, I'm like, what does that do? Or what does that do? Or the doctor, the eye doctor, what's that one do? So I applaud anything that, can help people to learn and develop themselves better. Excellent. So it looks like
and one of the things, I just want to say, Janine, one of the things that people don't give appreciation to is that learning occurs informally and in the workplace. And so that's the other element that I bring to the table, is helping people recognize learning is happening everywhere.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Very good. So you can find out more about Carrie at drcarriegraham.com. And also in the show notes, we'll include their contact information, emails, or not emails, but LinkedIn links and website addresses as well, if you don't have time to jot it down now. Thank you, Carrie, for sharing. So Amanda, why don't you tell us more about the value of visibility an PR expert can bring?
Yes. Well, thank you. So I help clients who feel like they're lost in the noise. A common refrain that I hear from my clients, and this happens over and over and over again. It's amazing to me that people say the same thing, but it's this: I'm really good at what I do, but not enough people know about me. And I work with brands who have a story to tell. I work with people who are service oriented, who want to put good information out there. And I help them raise their voices using free tactics that we use in the PR world. That's what public relations is. It's not advertising. So you're not paying for the opportunity, you're earning the opportunity. I help translate those tried and true tactics from the traditional PR world to small businesses so that my clients can raise their visibility, be seen, heard, understood for what they can bring to their clients, and thus improve the bottom line. That's really always the goal.
Yeah. Exactly. Excellent. Yeah. And as I said before, Amanda was one of the first coaches that I worked with in my business to help me clarify my message and gain more visibility. So I recommend you head on over to amandaberlin.com and check that out as well.
Thank you, Janine.
Simone, you seem to be having a little bit of problem. If you can still hear me, you might want to try and come back on again because you're frozen as well. All right. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit with Amanda and Carrie, because they have both been guests on my show previously. And when you think back to, actually, Amanda's been on the show twice, once at the very beginning and once earlier this year. And I think, Carrie, you were earlier this year as well, if I remember correctly as well.
Yeah.
So, Carrie, when you think about your experience coming on the show and reflecting on your own pricing journey, what was that? What comes to mind, or what was that like for you?
Honestly, Janine, it was an opportunity for me to have really candid conversations about something that in our society we don't talk about. So, as a woman, as an African American woman, to talk about money and publicly, it's just not something that we do. And so for me, leaving our conversation, well, let me back up. During our conversation, I felt a opportunity and was moved to be candid and to be vulnerable in talking about what my struggle was, and recognizing that my struggle is simply mine, but other people have their own struggles around pricing, the value of their service or their products, and resolving that. And so it was really, when I left our conversation, I went back and listened to it again, and it was definitely an opportunity for me to spend more time thinking about my growth and appreciating my growth. And for me, that has been the greatest value, is through our conversation, I was able to grow, not only for my business, but more importantly, personally.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. And when you look back on that conversation, is there anything that surprised you about your experience that you had along the way?
So the quote that you used to advertise for it, it took me by surprise when I saw it, because it said I priced for ease, and I was pricing for ease. And I was like, should I be embarrassed by that, or should I not be embarrassed by that? And then I thought, well, it just is what it is. And it really gave me the opportunity to recognize that what's easy for me is not easy for the next person. And I also bring decades, actually over 2 decades of experience in a singular task that other people don't have. And so, yes, it is easy for me to talk about. It's easy for me to do. And that's a lot of value. 25 plus years is a lot of value that I'm going to hand over to someone who has 0 to start with. And so from that regard, it really helped me realize my value. I think there's a lot to be said when you're thinking about a concept versus when you're articulating that same concept. So it really did a lot for me personally, but that immediately translated into my business and my business's growth. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about the episode was how forthcoming you were about that. Because I ask people to come on the show and talk about their pricing journey, and it's not an easy thing necessarily for people to do. I've actually had some people say, no, thank you. Over the years, that they didn't want to, which is totally fine, right? I'm not here to force that on anyone. But I know and I see firsthand how much people struggle with the topic, and I know other people have done what you did. And so I very much appreciate that you were able to be so forthcoming about your own experience and journey. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Amanda, when you've been on the show, I'm curious, what was your sort of reflections on your own pricing journey as you expressed them when you were on the show?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to take a second to, I feel like everything that Carrie says, I'm like, I just want to echo that. I feel like right now, I keep hearing, I talked to a new client yesterday who's coming into the business. And she also said that she has, 20 years or 18 years of whatever it was of, subject matter expertise. And I as well, and Janine, I know you as well. And Carrie, you have mentioned, like, we all have been steeped in this world of, in our area of expertise for decades. And I believe that this is a moment for us to own that expertise and to really own our value in so much that we have been practicing for all of this time. So I love seeing thematically things coming up over and over again in different contexts. So I just wanted to highlight that because I see those as like little signs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, Janine, being on your show, particularly the second time, highlighted for me the kind of like the growth journey that I've had, because I remember when you asked me to come on the second time, I was like, this is perfect because I recently experienced a crisis of pricing.
Oh no, I have a new term. Thank you.
Yes. Because I had grown and raised my rates, but I still had this like one service that was not kind of compliant with the others pricing wise. It didn't make sense. And so I needed to figure out how I was going to kind of leapfrog that service forward pricing wise so that it was cohesive with my other offerings. And I believe that was like the real turning point in my business in, again, kind of owning my expertise, owning the value of what I offer, and really, bringing a professional lens to the pricing structure so that it wasn't haphazard, it was intentional, and it made sense.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. And I think that brings a really good point across to people, or something I think is really important is, it's one of those things that just when you think you got your pricing right, the universe has a way of throwing something different at you. And you're like, oh man, here I am again. Yeah. But you have this toolkit of experience from before that you can apply to it. And I think that that's probably one of the most important things is you keep building that muscle or that skill to be able to adapt to those situations. Yeah. Excellent. Simone, you have not yet been a guest. I emphasize yet a guest in one of the episodes with just myself to talk about your pricing journey. But you've been a follower and a listener of the show. What led you to the show?
I actually started watching the show when pricing really got relevant for us, and we were all so overwhelmed in the team when it was about pricing our offer, and no one in our startup had any clue about pricing at all. And so I started actually to look around for an expert and a pricing coach. But people in my generation normally are doing is they start using Google search engine, they start using YouTube, and that's where I saw all your great learning videos, and where I also saw others, and most offers and most things that I found about pricing were purely based on math and numbers, and I saw a huge difference in what you were offering, because for me, you were a perfect fit, like learning from your videos, but later also when I had the coaching with you, because you convinced me to look at pricing as a look at pricing like the whole picture, and not so also including psychology behind pricing, and that really convinced me. And through your videos, I could really learn a lot of aspects about that too.
Yeah. Now, Simone, if I remember correctly, were you also involved in the Swiss Sustainability Challenge?
That's true. Right. That's when I first heard about you.
Okay.
But I'm the person that always would do research before, really. So yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And do you have a favorite episode from the ones that you listen to that you'd like to share with people? Or a favorite message?
I have to say a lot of your episodes are really great. So there's not one that I would like point out and say this is the best one. But what was really helpful for me was the willingness to pay. Really look what customers are willing to pay, and where you dived more deep in how to get results from your potential customers and to find out what they would be willing to pay. And there you gave a lot of very helpful tips that I've never came across anywhere else.
Okay, we'll be sure to include that video in the show notes as well for people. Excellent, thank you. Let's say Carrie. Carrie, what's the most important message that you have for other business owners when it comes to understanding the value that they deliver?
Oh, that is such a great question. I would say is taking stock and being reflective, really. It's looking at your past experiences. And so if we think about people who are offering a service, critically think about the extent to which you do your work and the knowledge that you have. Don't limit yourself in terms of this is what I'm choosing to do today. I have a wide range of skill sets. I've chosen to focus on one part for my business. But when I look at all of the things that I'm drawing from to offer the service in my business, I have to acknowledge that. And I have to charge for that because it has supplemental value. So that's what I would encourage business owners who are struggling with pricing or are looking to make a change in their pricing. It's to look at the value of all of what you're doing and have done. And I can confidently say there will be elements of every part of your prior experience that come into play. So much so that I'm very clear about my services. But there was something that Amanda said a couple minutes ago, and it just, I'm like, oh yeah, I do X, Y, and Z. And I used to offer it as a service, but it needs to be incorporated in the full. And so I literally was trying to like write a note without looking down, but I did, right? Like I wrote a note because I'm like, yes, I do. I am an auditor. Like that's how, when you're creating learning experiences, that's how you improve, through auditing your work and assessing your work. So why did I step away from that when the reality is it needs to be included in the body of work that I do? So look at the totality of your work.
Yeah. It always amazes me how, clients will come to me, or potential clients will come to me. Well, I don't know how to assess the value because, what I did in the past isn't this. And I was like, just because it's not the same thing doesn't mean that it doesn't have, meaning and value now. Almost anything does. I mean, I studied engineering in university, and while I don't design buildings anymore, I still use bridges in my presentations, and I still I use my problem-solving skills that I learned from that. So I think you're absolutely right. It's easy to discount those things or to assume that they have no value, but it's extremely important to remember to incorporate them and see how they fit. They often fit in a slightly different context.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Amanda. I know you didn't know, but thank you.
I love it. Amanda, when it comes to guests on the show, I'm curious, who would you love to see come on the show and talk about their pricing journey?
Oh, interesting. That's a really good question. So, I think that one person who comes to mind is a friend of mine who runs an all-women owned and operated virtual law firm. And she has a lot of personnel. A lot by our sort of solo entrepreneur, small business standards. And they are full-time staff. And I think what I would be interested in, whether it's her or someone else, I'd be interested in hearing from a business owner who is operating with staff, with kind of like, in the US, there's a call, there's like a pressure, I suppose, to offer benefits. So I'd be so curious how and this would be self-serving, how one kind of elevates to that next level of operating a business, and how your pricing needs to reflect your desire to have full-time staff and provide them with, all of the accommodations that a full-time job would afford them.
Right. Yeah, it is a different picture. That's for sure. Excellent. I'll be sure to get that on there. Simone, I'm curious, as someone who's listened to a lot of episodes, what sort of topics are something that maybe we haven't covered on the show that you'd be interested to learn more about?
I mean, I'm always interested to learn more about psychology, because I think this is such an interesting topic. And I already mentioned that it's really, really something that most coaches, or most people that think about pricing, just leave out. So anything else that we could discuss on hands-on example, how to include more psychology would be so interesting for me, and I would immediately join. Yeah. Because for me, also the human brain, how everything functions, is interesting for me and maybe psychology is even more important than the numbers itself.
Where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
Who said that? No, it's true that a lot of people will discount the psychology. And one of the things that's really important about it is if you don't pay attention to it, it can also hurt your business or hurt your chances of making the sale. So it's not always about using it actively. Sometimes it's about making sure that you aren't accidentally doing the wrong thing. So, okay, we'll be sure to bring more of that onto the show. If you're out there listening to this and you have questions or topics related to pricing that you'd like us to cover on the show, please go reach out to me and send those in and we'll get that on the show. Excellent. So we're here today celebrating the 99th and upcoming 100th episode. And I have three very capable business women here. So I'd like to ask you a few questions more about your business as opposed to your experience on the show. So Amanda, what led you to start your business?
Oh, great question. So I spent 12 years in the New York City PR agency world, and I was helping the loudest guys in the room be louder than their competition. I was working with some of the largest organizations in the world, largest companies, corporations you've definitely heard of. Maybe you've worked for them. And I felt like between the sort of mandate to help these companies kind of dominate in their field and the corporate culture, which also didn't really agree with me, I felt like I just want to like do something that feels like it's having a positive impact. I just want to have a positive impact. And that was what I kept saying, the refrain in my head. And I did not know what that would look like. It was like, I want to have a positive impact. I want to go out on my own. And I had no idea that was such a vague task that I gave myself. And so eventually I got let go from my last job there. The company was downsizing and they eliminated my position. And I was like, okay, this is my moment. And I realized that the skill set that I had acquired over the course of those 12 years, having worked in celebrity, when we were talking about first job, this was my very first position in the PR world, was doing celebrity press junkets, which was really fun. Like, as far as PR is concerned, it was like a really exciting job. But so my experience started there, and then I went and worked for companies that had complicated stories to tell, like pharmaceutical companies launching a new vaccine or a new drug, to consumer products where, their message could be really commercial, if not dealt with properly. And so I had this really kind of vast and deep skill set, vast and deep simultaneously, in creating a story out of, details and messages that the client was really into, but the audience may not have been really into. So I needed to satisfy both of those stakeholders. And I realized that skill set is what we all need as business owners, large or small, in order to get our message out there, to activate the people who need us so that they know that we can help them. And so when I had that realization, I just started to move in that direction, and things have evolved, precipitously ever since, to the point now where I have a framework that I work through with clients that invokes three pillars of visibility, different tactics from the larger PR world that we can employ that feel really good to my clients, because that's always the primary goal. Is you have to feel really good about what you're putting out there, your messaging, as you mentioned, and the conduit for your messaging to reach your audience. You have to feel aligned in all of that, and it has to be strategized and implemented in the right way so that it has the right effect on when it lands with your audience. So it elicits the result that you're looking for. So I work in that framework with my clients to help them reach the people that are going to then become their clients.
Right. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I think so many people have had this experience of coming out of the corporate world and starting their own business. And it's what I hear from people and what I experienced myself is that, you you assume the people are out there and that they will come, right? There's this little voice inside your head that says it'll work, but you don't necessarily realize the effort that goes into making sure that they hear not just that message, but the right message as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I call that the reverse field of dreams phenomenon, because it's, if you build it, they don't necessarily come.
Well, I have the pricing field of dreams. So you set a price and everybody will buy when you find the right price.
That's it.
I love it. So Carrie, I'm curious, earlier this year, I was planning to have a panel discussion and we are going to talk about online courses. And I was really excited. Unfortunately, due to time zone challenges, I never got it off the ground because we had Carrie and then we had somebody in the UK, myself here, and somebody in Australia, and it was a disaster. So one of the things that it just didn't work time zone wise. But one of the things I'm really curious about with what you do with people, and I know so many of my followers and people listening have online programs for people. As a business owner and as a specialist in this area, what is it that they need to understand in order to, get the best out of those courses, or for their clients to get the best out of those courses?
I know this may be shocking, but I would say don't create a course. Don't do it. So here's why I say that. I stepped into a few years ago, when I stepped into the online market, I recognized that is in fact the trend. Everyone believes that they need a course. Mm-hmm. And I understand where that comes from, from marketing and sales. But when you look at the research around adults and their ability to learn and why they are internally motivated to learn, a course, as defined by online markets, is not always the best option. And so for small businesses, group programs, or group coaching programs, I really want to encourage people to think about what are some other ways that you can facilitate learning in a meaningful way outside of a course. And so I do have this, it's a complimentary download on my website that's like, stop creating courses, basically. But it provides other options. And you have to think about it. When you think about the word course, so often, if you didn't have a wonderful learning experience as a child, you're already disinterested, uninterested. You're not going to be engaged. And so I know that that's the trend, but I want to encourage people to consider other avenues than using a course. So that's for small businesses. When I work with corporate clients, who have lots of training, formalized trainings, my advice to them is, please do not create more. Don't create more of the same, right? But instead, let's do a deep dive of an audit to assess whether or not what you have is in fact effective. Often than not, they are not effective. They do not support engagement. They don't support retention, and they don't support skills application. And so from a bottom line perspective, business or corporations are investing in, in their L&D, but yet they're not achieving the respective outcomes that they would expect. And so looking at it from two perspectives, from the small business and the coaching industry, there's other ways of supporting learning that's very structured, but there are other ways outside of a course. And then from the corporate sector, I firmly encourage people to look at it more, all of their materials more succinctly, and design for the adult learner in the workplace. And that is a very specific and very different level of design than I'm gonna write a book about how to use this class. and put it out into the ether, right? Like it requires a different level of skill set and a very different strategy for achieving the outcomes that people want.
Right. So first of all, I walked right into that. You're welcome. And second of all, I'm going to have to figure out how to have this other panel discussion because I really think it's an important discussion to have. So I'll have to get back on that. So Simone, you've been in business, what, about 2.5, 3 years now since you first started?
Actually, it's almost 3 years now.
3 years, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm curious, what have you learned along the way, starting your own business, that you'd like to share with other people who are just getting started?
I mean, I think the answer for me is very, very short, actually. Startups tend to try to do everything by themselves. And my simple answer to that is ask for help. Be willing also to pay others to help you. But please don't try to do everything by yourself because you lose so much time. That is also value. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I see heads shaking all around the table, if you will, the virtual table here. It's so true that, at times it feels really difficult to make those decisions to invest in the business or even just ask for help if that's what it is. But it really is also, in my experience, one of the most important things to do. Yeah. Okay, why don't we start wrapping this up now? I've got a few more questions for you. Let's see, Amanda, what is it that motivates you each and every day to get up?
Oh, good question. Well, I love the morning. I love mornings. But I do have, I think on a figurative level, I have an 8-year-old daughter who I am, I'm a single mom and I have a great co-parent. So, I'm not alone in this, but I am alone in my household. And so that is definitely a motivator. On a philosophical level, I love owning my own business. It's part of my identity. And I think in the last year or so, I think coming out of the pandemic has been we could have an entire conversation about this, but there's been like a reckoning and a reevaluating. And I've come down very firmly on the side of, I love owning my own business and this is what I want to continue doing. And on another philosophical level, in terms of the work I do with clients, is I feel very strongly and passionately about the fact that we all have something very important to contribute. And if we don't have the tools and the fortitude to put it out there, as I help my clients to do, then the world will be missing what we are meant to contribute. And even more granularly, the people who we're meant to support will not have the support that we can offer them. And I also think it's really important right now to be elevating everyone who has classically not been elevated and to share the stage, share the mic, share the opportunities, and also with every opportunity that comes our way, be an advocate that whoever that is in my world, it's like a decision maker, a reporter, a journalist, that they also talk to someone they may not have otherwise found because that person doesn't have agency to reach out or whatever it may be. So there are a lot of reasons why I get up in the morning. And I think that, I get chills also when I think about, the impact that we all have the capacity to have. So that's why.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Simone, what gets you out of bed every morning? Get you going?
From a business perspective, actually, and that is the same reason what motivated me to really be a founder and create my own business is do something that you love, do something that you're passionate about, do something that feels meaningful to you, because then it's so easy to get out of bed if it's not something that you think I'm just doing it because I need to have money on my bank account to pay my bills, but it's way more than that. To like, I feel like giving a positive, like I want to leave a positive handprint on that earth, and I feel that's what I'm really doing. So this makes me to get out of bed very easily, actually. Yeah.
I do.
But on the other side, as from a private perspective, I think I'm so thankful for that life here, and I think there's so much to explore. I'm a very curious person. I love meeting friends and family and other people, and life is just too short to stay in bed. Besides after sleep, you know. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. I love it. I love it. I have to say, I really enjoy working with sustainability businesses because they have such a passion around what they do and a higher purpose, if you will. And it's always very exciting working with them. So I've really enjoyed that. Carrie, what is it that motivates you to do what you do?
I have to say, I love waking up in the morning when the sun shines on my face. And I think it goes back to my childhood because that's how I grew up. And so as soon as the sun hits me, I'm like, okay, today's an adventure, right? Like, so I really, years ago, I recognized that I love adventure. And so I need to embrace the concept of living my life as an adventure. And that's part of what gets me out of bed every morning is, what's today going to be about? Who am I going to meet? What am I going to see? Like, what crazy TV show am I going to have the opportunity to watch? You know, so it's just always an adventure. And I'm so thankful for that perspective at this point in my life. From a business perspective, also like Amanda, I was downsized. My position or program that I was working in was eliminated. And coincidentally, over the years, I had a waning interest in healthcare, oddly enough, and a growing interest in why people were not having a good time at work ultimately. And what I realized is it was around learning. Learning isn't advocated in the workplace. And so in getting my PhD and working, reading the research, creating my own research, publishing on the workplace experiences, the fire inside of me has grown so much that when I was downsized, I said, okay, this is my chance. This is my chance to really dive into what I'm passionate about, because much like Amanda and Simone have identified, I work with businesses, yes. And I'm very committed to the people that I'm working with. But my heart, during that work, my heart is consistently thinking about the end user. So if I'm working with a business to improve their talent development trainings, I'm committed to that process. But in the back of my mind, I'm consistently thinking about the employee. What is this? How is this going to impact their work life? Because their work life impacts their home life. And so I'm always thinking ahead, and that just stems from early beginnings in healthcare. You're consistently thinking ahead. And so that gets me up and wakes me up in the morning and encourages me to, okay, who am I going to talk to today? Who is their end user, and how can I have an impact on that person's life? And so I still get to fly under the radar. Amanda, don't listen right now, right? Not from a PR perspective, but in terms of like being out there consistently, I get to work behind the scenes. And I love that because I know that the dedication that I bring to the table and the value that I bring to the table, it's impacting my clients, which I am so excited and thankful for. But more importantly, and I'm a religious person, a spiritual person, when I die and I meet my God, I can look in the face and say, I had an impact on other people's lives. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about that singular person. It was about everyone that they touched. So that gets me up in the morning, and that provides me good night's rest, because I have to say, working for larger organizations, I was in higher education, and there were many nights that I didn't sleep well. And because I am driving my own bus, I'm driving my own agenda, and I'm following something that means more to me than someone else's agenda.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you I have slept so good for the last couple years that I've been in business for myself, I am so thankful. I am absolutely incredibly thankful that my life has brought me to this point, because it wasn't something that I anticipated. But yep, every morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrie, for sharing that. Thank you to all of you. It's been a real pleasure having you here with me. We should have worn party hats. So I didn't think of that. I'm sure there's a filter somewhere we could use, but it's too late now. Just to imagine little party hats. And, coming back here and reflecting on the show and your experience with the show in different ways and your journey as a businesswoman. So thank you very much for joining me here today in episode 99.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
You're welcome. Thank you also to all of you who have joined us today and who will be listening later. This show is really ultimately there for you to learn and develop and grow in your business. We have one more celebration episode coming up in 2 weeks. I still can't believe it. Episode 100, pardon me. And we are turning the tables. That's right. I've invited Paulina Rossi to come back on the show and interview me. So we're going to talk about my own pricing journey, my own professional and business journey as well. So be sure to join us for that 2 weeks from today, which would be the 28th for the live version of the show. If you're listening podcast, it'll be a week later released as a podcast as well. So be sure to reserve the date and join me for that. Thank you, everyone, so much for being with us here today. Of course, if you have questions at any time about pricing in your business, you can head on over to thepricinglady.com and book a call with me there. And if you're loving this show, be sure to leave me a review and a rating there. I love hearing from you guys, and not just your comments and rave reviews, but also the questions you have and the topics you want to hear more about. So share those with me there. I wish you all the best. Have a great day, everyone. And as always, enjoy pricing, everybody.